All right. Should we get this pantomime horse of a podcast underway again for week 10? 10 weeks, Kieron, we've been
10.
doing this. That's the longest we've done anything like this. I think
That is
it's
true.
the longest we've been consistent.
That's because of that single piece of feedback we got to encourage us.
That's
one piece
right.
in 10. Well, here we
Very
are,
good.
our 10th anniversary. Can you call it that?
No, you can't.
No.
It's 10 years, you fool. There's no such thing. It's like those people who celebrate, it's like our 6 month anniversary. It's like, no, you've been going out for 6 months. It's not an anniversary. Anniversary of the year, you idiots. So anyway, enough of that old nonsense. How was
Yeah,
your week?
I want to know, did you get yourself out of the doghouse? You last weekend,
Ah,
you were firmly in the doghouse. You went away for a weekend with Mrs. Watkins, and I'm assuming you're now out of the doghouse and happily living your life.
well, what can I tell you? I can tell you that I was out of the doghouse for the weekend, but it turns out it's really easy to get back in the doghouse.
Much
When
easier to
you,
get in than out, I find.
yeah, it turns out once you leave the 4-star hotel after spending a fortune on fine dining and champagne and flowers, that actually when you get back to reality, kind of ping, it all goes. I used to joke that my wife miles, not brownie point, wife miles, have the half-life of uranium 232. They just disappear like that. So there's no getting them back once they're gone. So never mind.
Indeed.
Enough about that old nonsense.
Yes. Right.
Anyway, what was the big highlights from your week?
My week. Well, my highlight. I've had a very busy week, which is great. Talking to customers, which is even better. I have been talking to multi-academy trusts. I've been talking to housing and university. So today
Professional.
was University Day, where we were training AI champions in KnowledgeFlow and giving them the kind of overview of how it works, how it can help them. And really good that the university have identified a bunch of AI champions to help drive what we're doing. So that's really, really cool. And interestingly, on the other side, I also had a meeting today with the executive leadership team of the university on the driving a bit of accountability into forcing through some of the things we're doing with them, which is interesting. One of the things that often turns up, as you'll be very painfully aware, is we get someone that buys KnowledgeFlow, and then in some cases they're using it and their team are using it, but actually it's not being used more widely.
Yeah.
So trying to drive a bit more accountability into some of the projects that we're doing with this university. We've got amazing specialist tools for the uni, I think, as you know, it's helping them with their compliance, annual monitoring reviews, being able to effectively do that with, you throw the raw data at KnowledgeFlow, and then KnowledgeFlow has been trained to understand how to do an AMR, which is an annual monitoring review and a report that you have to write. And KnowledgeFlow does that for you. You give it the data, it tells you here's how it stacks up and here's the things you need to focus on, which is brilliant because, and similar to the Ofsted quality tools for colleges, what happens when you talk to people who actually do this job, and they might be director of quality in a college, or they might be CEO, when they sit down to have their review with someone that's produced a report, they tell me often that 3/4 of the time they spend is trying to work out what on earth you actually meant when you wrote down these things. What are you getting at? Because the writing's so bad, and describing data in words is like hard. And KnowledgeFlow does all that for you. So they're loving it because you can now actually have the conversation you would hope to have, rather than 45 minutes of like, what do you mean there? Really? No, why?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Did you
really
know,
interesting.
you might not know this, but today I got information from TechUK, and for those of you who don't know who TechUK are, they're an organisation, I think they're supported by the government to promote technology in the UK, and they are a very well-known and respected organisation. And
Very
they've just
respected.
published, yes, very respected, and they have just published a report on AI, practical transformation of AI in public services. And not one, but two of our case studies are in there. And one of them is the quality assistant for FE colleges. So
Okay. Yes.
a big shout out to our one audience. If he's still awake, Matt, you did good.
Yeah. Yeah. Well done, Matt.
Yeah, well
You
done,
wake
Matt.
up
So,
now. You've
yeah,
jolted him
brilliant.
awake. You heard his name.
What was that? So that was great. So that was one of the case studies. The other one, actually interesting, you mentioned housing associations. The other one was for Taff Housing. So really pleased for all of those guys, but also the fact that KnowledgeFlow has been touted as a good solution by one of the most respected tech organisations in the UK. So that's delightful.
That's amazing. That is cool. And I was with Taff on Monday.
Oh, we?
They're really good in that they've got like proper senior engagement. We get the CEO, their director of technology, and some of their other senior team around. We get every month we meet them and talk to them about like give them the feedback of how things are going and talk about the next bit. And they are really keen to push with us, which is brilliant because we've been trying to get this into housing. Two things: a agentic solution for tenant inquiries. So that is being able to immediately just letting KnowledgeFlow answer the emails rather than having humans do that, which is fine. And particularly when you triage first and you take all the easy stuff. What time do you open? When do I drop the keys off? How do I fix a boiler? Or all the stuff that's just really straightforward to answer. Let it answer it, and it gets instant answers. So that's really cool, and should be, I think, will give a better tenant experience and relieve a bit of pressure on the team that can then deal with the much more complex, challenging areas where they have tenants with additional needs. Put it that way. So they can handle those and spend their time on those instead of the sort of more mundane stuff, which is great. And then the other thing is using our API, agentic version of KnowledgeFlow with their repairs, and that being to be able to look at their repairs and prioritize, triage, just be able to update, take the data directly from the system and be able to immediately flag up those things that are urgent, those things that haven't been done as they should be, and all of that. And then I was talking to another housing association who are very in a similar space. They spend apparently they've just changed their contract for reactive repairs, so that's fixing the stuff that's broken today rather than planned for, and they say they've got a contract between 2.5 and 3 million. They expect to spend. They would like it to be 2.5, not 3.
Of course.
But trying to get kind of accuracy from contractors, it's a bit of a challenge because you can imagine some of the reasons why that might be. But they have schedule of rates codes within housing that helps you set the price that things should be. Those are a very lengthy tome of a document, which we've got Taff have a version of that runs automatically, so they can use our AI to get answers. Where we're looking to go with this other one, though, is an experiment to say, can we take previous actuals and use that alongside this schedule of rates codes to be able to be really quite precise and to say, we think that leaking tap is £28.95 or whatever. And so that'll be really fascinating to do a sort of live check of actual what jobs actually cost, and of course using the AI's ability to read properly the job, and so it can do a close match of like, this is a leaking tap in a 3rd floor tower block, blah blah blah, and then being able to pick up the costs from that or from many of those and give a really accurate view. So that'll be really interesting. I'm really excited.
Did you, seeing as I've chided you on this podcast before, did you show them the photograph?
I did.
Did you actually get right? Did you remember to do it this time?
I did, and I even told him that because he was in the audience. That's how he found us.
Oh, was he?
He was in the audience for that session, and I said to him that I have been ridiculed by my team for not showing you probably the most impressive thing. Because exactly that, and as we were talking about, if the contractor says, well, that 3-meter piece of fence actually wasn't 100 quid, it cost 300 quid because we had to dig a bit of this and put a foundation in there, you could ask for a photograph and run that straight into KnowledgeFlow, and probably firstly in the diagnostics it could maybe give you a view on that. Secondly, it could probably check Like,
Yeah,
give you
yeah,
a bit of it doesn't look like that, son. Looks like
yes.
you've just nailed that to the tree.
You should take before and after pictures and store them and say,
Well,
there you go.
exactly.
Yeah.
Spot the difference. You've just stood that fence up, haven't you? That's not a new fence at all.
Are we
But
going to be targeted by fencing contractors whose
possibly.
income are going to drop significantly due to KnowledgeFlow?
Possibly, but well, that's what this housing association was saying, is they don't, since COVID really, they've got into, they don't check everything as much as they did. I'm sure they didn't check everything, and so the propensity to, I'm trying to find the right polite words, but get it wrong is higher now, because
The
nobody's
opportunity
checking.
for accidental errors.
There we go. That's the right way of putting it.
Yeah,
And then the last one, there's the Multi-Academy Trust. So our MAT client that I was with, configuring their KnowledgeFlow to do lots of amazing stuff. So they've got a pastoral support assistant, which is there to help with all of those quite challenging matters. It's got all of their policies, best practices, various things about that, so that you can interact with that ahead of or during, indeed, a sort of pastoral discussion with a student or staff member. So that's quite neat. And then they've got education data tools, which help them. They upload their data and it tells them what things they need to go and look at, which is brilliant.
Yeah, I'm surprised we haven't done more in Multi-Academy Trust, is the honest truth. It does, as I think we've talked about before, it's been a slow burn. I actually, I was a little bit naughty. I'll confess to this. I was a bit naughty and this week, and I have joined a competitor's webinar and listened to them, and it was frankly awful. It was just
Good.
yeah. Well, it was awful for a couple of reasons, but the main one was it was like really patronising about. It's like, here's all the things that you should be doing in schools and FE. It's like, if I was in one of those organisations, I'd have been really bloody cross, is the honest truth. It's like, thanks very much, Mr. Outsider, telling us what our responsibilities are. I think we know better than you. And can you just get on with it and show us what you can do? And they actually didn't show their tool at all. And I know for a fact, when you get on a webinar, you can't wait to open up KnowledgeFlow. You're ridiculous for it. You're like, right, and here, let me just show you this. It's brilliant. And so it was completely the opposite of what it was. I know you do.
And I never do video. I don't even have a video backup because I'm that confident in our stuff. And nearly everyone I've ever seen has a video backup, or indeed don't even have a backup. They are only running the video.
Well, not being funny, but this particular outfit, they couldn't even get the video working on their. Not could they get the slides working for most of it. So it was. It didn't inspire confidence by any stretch. So yeah, that was very humorous. I enjoyed.
Well, I'm glad.
It was an hour I'll never get back.
Well, there's too many people out there that are not. Yeah, I think our public sector ethos is important in everything that we do. It ultimately drives, doesn't it? What we're actually trying to do is make a difference, and that doesn't mean a difference to the bank account. It means a difference to outcomes for your customers, clients, citizens, whoever they are. So yeah. Good. I'm glad other people are showing themselves up for the charlatans that they are.
I was once told by somebody that a guru is just someone who can't spell charlatan. So I'm going to call them gurus.
Yeah, watch out what you wish for. So what have you been up to this week then, apart from joining dodgy webinars and being bored?
Dodgy webinars. Well, it's been a busy old week. Couple of things. One is, I know that you love to do product of the week. Cue jingle.
Yeah.
But I want to, and you always love the new shiny stuff, and you're always moving on to the next. I'd like to have a shout out for one of our very first tools called BidWriter. So,
yes.
In another part of the forest, I have to, I don't have to, but I do. I help Everything ICT write bids, and there's a bid out at the moment, and it, just to put it into perspective, it is a £500 million contract value. So it's a very big, very important piece of work. And the stage one documentation came out, and there are all the usual questions, but there are a series of text boxes, which comes to something like 7,500 words. And I don't know the last time you tried to write 7,500 words. It takes a long time. And if I'd have tried to do it, if I'd have tried to do the first draft, it probably would have taken me a week previously. And I did it in 4.5 hours on Tuesday. And it's probably only 80% there, but it's 80% there for a first draft that I can give to the rest of the team. And now they can take it and they can sprinkle in all of the relevant examples, because obviously it's pulling from previous case studies and previous bids, and then things have moved on, and we've got new and other customers that we could reference, more recent stuff that we could put in there. So I've given it to the team, but I was given a week to do it, and I was like, I can crack this out in an evening. So just get a couple of them fake beers in, and I'll just knock it out. And it was really good. There were a few, as I say, a few little foibles, but there always are. And AI doesn't replace the thinking, but AI gives you that first set. So yeah, I was really chuffed with it. And I think the new version running on 5.2 definitely gave better answers than we've had previously. So yeah, a shout out to BidWriter. So nice there you go.
And just for our listener who may or may not know about how BidWriter works in our world, in KnowledgeFlow, and may be thinking, yeah, I use AI for bids as well. When you use AI for bids, if you use ChatGPT or any of them to answer a bid question, it will give the same answer that everyone else that's using AI is doing. And bid evaluators see it all the time, don't they? And they're saying, I'm getting the same thing 15 times. And it's like,
yeah, you get marked down.
That?
Yeah, you just mark it down, don't you? It's kind of, this is clearly generic stuff. So
yeah, exactly.
Being able to, but I was doing, I mean, I've said this to you before, but just being able to kind of load it up, right? Read the evaluation, right? How many points would you give me for this answer? And it'll go, I'll give you 4 for this, right? Well, stick in some better examples, stick in an example from this organization or that organization, or add in some statistics or whatever else, and you can ratchet it up, but ratchet up the answers to get even better, because it works iteratively. It's that kind of it. The first pass at it is quite generic, but as with any of these tools, the better you prompt it, the better you question it, the better you challenge it and say, no, that's not good enough. Actually, that's not the right answer. That's not what I want to say. I want to put it like this, or change the answer to this kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, 4.5 hours it took me, and it would have taken me best part of a week to get to that if I'd have started from scratch. And
from my experience with it, it's also 4.5 hours of more enjoyable time. I mean, it's hard to say that writing a bid is enjoyable ever, but actually just trying to draft copy, unless you absolutely love to write, it is hard to try and write something crisply, and you end up deleting the same sentence 13 times and then get rid of that whole paragraph anyway 5 minutes later. And whereas that part goes, and you can focus on, is this answering the question, which is obviously much better to do than you are, did I write that in a coherent way? So I think there's lots to be said for, and doing it privately through KnowledgeFlow, so you're not sharing your data with the world and giving it to ChatGPT so that everyone else can use it in their next bid, is pretty important, I would argue. So,
and making sure you don't miss stuff. It's I remember the evaluators in the DFE used to tell us, we can only evaluate what's on the paper. That's our job, is to, whatever's in that box is all. And if you've got 500 words, anything over 501 after that we ignore. So so getting it right and getting it tight is an iterative process. But to get to the first point in the first day that we had the actual tender documentation, just means that we can get on with another one. Interesting enough, I had another one came through this week for leading AI, which I looked at and I thought, oh crikey, look at all those questions. And I was thinking, Actually, they're really quite easy. And now with the security thing that we set up last week,
Yeah.
I was thinking, no, right, that's going to be easy. That I'll knock that out on Monday afternoon. It'll be brilliant. I'll do that. I'm not even going to worry about it. So
well,
no,
and it's a tender for an AI bid writer, isn't it? So you got to respond with
hilarious.
your AI bid writer. It's like,
There's a question there. Did you use AI in the writing of this bid? Of
yes.
course I did, you idiots.
Absolutely, thoroughly. In fact, I didn't even have a human look at it.
Correct. Yeah. I will have a human look at it.
On your point about how you worked with KnowledgeFlow to be able to get good answers, I read this week that McKinsey are now introducing into their recruitment interviewing process effectively AI tests. They're not basically, they want to know that you can prompt, they want to know that you can challenge, and they want to know that you can critically think alongside AI, which is brilliant to see. And all these things we talked last time or a few times ago about the councils who have said who have reported social workers turning down jobs because they didn't have an AI tool that the social workers needed, and now we're starting to see it at the front end of blocking you from getting in the first place. And this is the world. If you're not on the journey, then I don't know what AI is going to take jobs anyway. But this right now is people who can understand AI are going to take your job, and so get going or progress your learning.
Can I just say that's how I got into the doghouse last time? I'm just checking Mrs. Watkins isn't in the room. Because that was part of the conversation that got me to the doghouse last time. Yes.
You won't have a job. Oh dear.
That's right. I won't go there again.
No, best not to. I was doing some just asking myself about. So last week, Anthropic released Opus 4.7, their latest AI model. And I was asking, what is the IQ of Opus 4.7? Because people do a sort of IQ read across for a whole bunch of AI tools. So the first answers that you get is, well, there isn't one, which is interesting. When I read around it, there's a thing that there's an AI score that is actually more akin to what AI can do, because AI can smash an IQ test. It's like it's pointless giving it to them. It do the whole thing and get 100% instantly in 7 seconds. So it's going to outperform everybody, but it's not a genuine test. So there's other ways, and then you infer the IQ. But here's the thing: Opus 4.6 has an IQ equivalent all over the internet, 133 IQ, and 4.7 is probably 140. An IQ of 140, and that is available to you to do whatever your bidding is. I mean, that is not many people go beyond that. You're in the very top quartile and top percentile, probably, aren't you, of humans? So, and interestingly, I heard on a very good podcast that I listened to, AI in Education, they were talking about a similar thing. I was saying feedback from people, general public, about AI. I tried it and it wasn't really that good. Was the problem is you're trying the free tools. And here's the thing, right? If you hired an accountant for 20 grand, one for 50 grand, and one for 100 grand, you would expect very different outputs from them. And if you're paying, you're getting the 100 grand accountant, the Opus 4.7 with an IQ of 140. If you're not, you're on ChatGPT, whatever it might be, and you're getting the 20 grand equivalent and an IQ of about 100, maybe 90. So that is a very big difference. So ultimately, unless you actually have tried the real tools, the kind of thing that's behind KnowledgeFlow, then you're really not really playing with AI really to its full capability. You're just kind of seeing some real basic stuff. I thought it was really interesting, that kind of read across into a job role and different salary levels.
No, it's a really interesting analogy, really, isn't it? That whole, you kind of get what you pay for, is an old adage. But the release of new models, all the LLMs had new releases last week, and lots of the gossip on the wires is really about costs increasing and not just ads starting to appear in order to generate revenue, but actually people starting to charge much bigger numbers for those later models, and actually creating a two-tier system. Actually, it would be a three-tier system, wouldn't it? It'd be kind of free models, silver, and then gold, or whatever. Those who can afford to pay, your 200, free £20 a month, £200 a month is kind of where the sort of standard stuff is right now, but it's expected that those prices will increase. And kind of linked to something we talked about last week, the rise of Mythos and how that's being very carefully handled, and only 50 organizations in the world allowed to touch it at the moment. And there was a really interesting podcast on The Economist about it, and it said that it noted that Chat GPT, I think it was 5.3 Cyber, was released 3 days after Mythos. So it was kind of almost like they just stuck cyber on the end and said, we got something too, look at us. But that wasn't the point of the podcast. The point of the podcast was, does the rise of Mythos and similar tools help defenders or attackers when it comes to cybersecurity? And there was a long conversation about pros and cons. It was talking about cyber attacks. 2 or 3 years ago, it was all ransomware. Today, it's not. So if you look at something like the Jaguar Land Rover cyber attack, that was more of a destructive attack. It's not about we're stealing your data. It's we're going to break things in your infrastructure, and we're going to keep punching that bruise until you pay us. So that's the kind of sort of destruction attacks that are being permeated these days. And obviously what they're looking for are those vulnerabilities so they get into your systems. Mythos really helps with that. And the conversation was around who's got the advantage. Is it attackers or defenders? And broadly speaking, they said, it should help defenders. All things being equal, defenders will be able to fix their problems before the attackers get in. But, and it's a really big but, it's only the bigger organizations that are going to be able to do that. Smaller, mid-size organizations are going to always be playing catch up. So unless you're really on top of it and understand it, then you're going to be extremely vulnerable, and it's not going to be those, as I say, ransomware attacks. It's going to be destructive attacks. So that's all really quite worrying. But there was I think you've already mentioned interesting facts. So I'm going to ask you, when you thought the very first recorded technology cyber type attack was recorded in history?
I actually have to guess. Were computers?
I didn't say computer, I said technology.
Okay, go on then. I'm not. Come on. Was it a plough? They got someone put a screwdriver through a plough, and that was a sign because of the sun.
It was a kid, and he stuck a stick through someone's wheel spokes, and he fell off. No. So the first sort of the first commonly acknowledged technology attack was in 1834, when in France, two chaps hacked into, in inverted commas, the telegraph wires in France to get information on the wars, so that they could use market manipulation, so they could buy and sell contracts. Yeah, 1834.
No way for market, not even for intelligence, for military intelligence, just like to make some money.
Yeah. But isn't that true? I mean, isn't that why most cyber attacks happen these days, to make money?
Yeah, so, there you go. Yeah.
What's changed? Really funny.
You're I mean, I think that whole kind of ransomware, the whole security, what is very evident is the world is in a high risk scenario from AI as it goes beyond Mythos's capabilities. Who knows what you do to sort it out? I remember when I did you might recall, I did some CIO roundtables for VMware with their kind of best European customers or biggest European customers. And there was a conversation there where they'd brought in their head of security, who was ex-CIA. And the phrase I still remember, he said, there's two types of CIOs. There's those that know they've had a cyber attack, and those that, and it's basically, his point was, everybody's got this stuff lying in their systems, ready to be alerted, and off it goes and does its nasty things. In those days, I mean, who knows now, but the code is proliferated around your systems and just lies there. You don't know. What he advised about was, if you find it, it is a really bad idea to delete one, because they are all trained to look for each other, programmed, I should say, to look for each other and note if one's been erased to then unleash hell, so that they ready to go. They've obviously been found, and before you can get rid of all of them. So he said actually the first thing you got to do is get hold of your security professionals, partly trying to drum up VMware business. But really interesting, I thought.
Yeah, that whole cyber stuff is really tricky, and the rise of agentic and coding. I'll come back to the agentic in a second. I've done some coding this week for the first time in ages. I did it on Claude. It was brilliant. Really loved it. And I'd stick in a. It's like asking me these questions that I don't understand. That I'll just take a screenshot and say, "Oh, I can see the problem now. Change the code to this one." It was just really,
so
really
when you
clever.
say you've done coding, you actually mean Claude's done some coding.
I did some cutting and pasting, and you always said AI is all about cutting and pasting anyway.
There you go. It's colouring in.
But coming back to the coding issue, lots of stuff recently on the wires about agentic and getting agents to write code and doing stuff for you, and that's terrifying. And there was something on the wires this morning that you saw as well, which was the whole overnight a company had done something where they'd set something running and they got $150,000 token bill from Google the next morning. And Google were like, "That's what you burnt." It's like, oh my goodness. So
we didn't mean to.
That's right. Google went, yeah, whatever. Where's my money? So yeah, really, really careful about creating and setting things running without understanding. I mean, I think you mentioned a couple of. If it wasn't last week, week before, we had a similar thing with 190,000. For us, it was like $50. It was like it wasn't the end of the world, but it kind of. Crikey, just terrifying the way it could rack up. And come back to the cost thing, if you're using those expensive models, then it could be literally hundreds of thousands. So
exactly,
yeah, you've got to think about putting limits on your token burn and what that means. But most people don't understand what a token is because it's really difficult to explain to the layperson. It could be 4 characters, it could be 1, it could be 2, it could be part of a sentence or part of a word. And because of the way that works, it's really difficult for most people to understand what the potential costs are. So they've got to be really careful, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And numbers are really a token is sort of broadly the way I kind of estimate if I have to. There are ways you can do it online. You can go grab a tokenizer from OpenAI or any of the models and see how much a block of text will be in tokens. And it's interesting because it shows you like little coloured splits to show you what a token is in a word. So like strawberries 4 or whatever it is. And but numbers, it burns truckloads of tokens when you start putting spreadsheets in. It's a very different thing. So yeah, it's knowing with them, no one, and you can't keep up with that. That's really, really difficult, and no one's going to know. But you can have a kill switch, which is what we are now adding to all of our.
It's a really big one. It goes
50 odd knowledge flows, and we have currently in all of ours have a budget trigger, so we'll get a warning if it's above a certain threshold. So we can at least have a look and see. But ultimately, I mean, this kind of thing that Google did in 9 hours, it went up 150 grand. So, I mean, you can't. No warning's going to probably help. You'll probably be 50 grand deep before you could stop it.
Right. Yeah.
So we're going to build in some automatic kill switches at whatever threshold. We'll probably make it suitably high, I imagine, so clients don't get stopped unnecessarily. But having something that does stop it if it gets past like 5 grand or something crazy to switch off immediately.
Are you sure? I don't. Here's my this week's plug for Nate B. Jones.
Oh yes, good. Hello again,
hello, Nate. He was talking about these rising costs and token burns and things, and he said the real problem is that people have just got lazy, so they'll just put in a PDF doc, and it'll obviously burn tokens while it sorts out the header and the footer and the pictures and the logo and everything else. And actually, if you're sticking a markdown file, you can save kind of an eighth of the, you can charge it eighth of the cost or whatever. and people just got lazy by just loading up all of the documents that they think might be useful rather than just giving it a little bit of thought, saying, actually, I don't need that one, or I don't need
That's
that.
really interesting.
And how do you train people just to, or even just do simply, if you're going to do a really big, I mean, we've done thousands of documents, but if you just turn those PDFs into markdown files or text files, it just saves a massive amount of token burn. And actually, if people, he described it in one of his posts as, we've been drinking at the open bar and the bar's just about to close, but you want to carry on drinking, it's going to cost you a fortune if you don't change your drinking habits. So that amused me, given given my non-alcoholic beer consumption.
Yeah, well, I'm on squash at the moment, so that's obviously good as well.
What's your excuse for not having beer?
I think, well, I don't know, there isn't one. Interestingly, I was thinking about that same thing from Nate, and how remember, software would always be written to be massively to minimize its storage impact. And then now, over the last, I don't know, probably 10 years, but certainly 5 years, no one cares anymore, because it's largely so cheap. It used to be really expensive, then it went cheap, and it looks like it's getting more expensive again at the moment. But that's really interesting, because I think we're in that, it feels like we might be in that phase of AI, of realizing, we have been, as to use Nate's drinking at the open bar, and just realizing there are better ways of doing it, and ways of being more efficient. And maybe that's the next wave for us to
listen to you talking about old ways. Do you remember when we were back at Ford, way back in the last century, Kieron? We were in the last century. I know. And there was a really gnarly old guy in the IT department. He was lovely, but he said to me, "Oh yeah, I've seen it all. We first we centralized, then we decentralized, then we decentralized. Now we're going to centralize again. It just goes around in waves. It takes about 10 years, but it'll be another one. I'll be long gone, retired by then. But you'll see these come." And he was absolutely right. Hilarious.
Yeah, the old change resistors. I remember that lots of meeting lots of them. I guess that's one of the things. It does get a bit hard work. You know, as you go on in your career, you kind of wiser at lots of things, less tolerant of a lot of things. But yeah, I think also a little bit more jaded about some of the stuff that probably can be made to work with the right effort, but ultimately it's easier just to go, "Oh no, I saw that before." Interesting world of whether we need more people to just go with it, or whether you actually just save yourself the bother and use a bit of wisdom and not bother with that.
That's right.
What was I going to talk to you about? Oh yeah, AI ambiguity. I often talk. I was talking to the AI champions of the university that we're working with today, and I was saying how, in prompting, one of the things that I have kind of discovered is that we are all, as humans, really bad at being clear in our writing and not leaving too much ambiguity. And if you leave ambiguity with an AI prompt, it will fill it in. And 90% of the time, it'll be bang on correct and wonderful. But 10% of the time, it's going to guess incorrectly. And that led me to another thing I saw this week, which amused me enormously, about words, English words. Teaching our 6-year-old phonics and how to read is quite interesting reflection on how many weird rules we have in the English language, and oddities. We seem to have fewer consistencies than we have all these outliers. But here's an interesting thing, which does strike in AI ambiguity, is the word sanction has 2 meanings and they're opposite each other. And that is just bananas for one word. Absolutely crazy. One word that means the opposite of each other. It's totally bananas. And then I was very amused to read that the word queue, you are queuing for the shops or whatever, is 1 letter doing all the heavy lifting and 4 silent letters all queuing up after it. But it is ridiculous. The written language of English is so bananas. You try and explain it all. Anyway, there you go. That was my amusing part this week. And I also discovered that talking to Louis, so Louis, my 17-year-old son, is doing some work experience for us at the moment, which is great to have him experiencing a bit of what it's like in the world of work, and getting his head further into AI, which is great. But he was talking about, let's get this, having aura. And he said, my mates said, "You've got aura, strong aura." And apparently that's to be cool in the modern nomenclature. So I take that to be good. You know, in so much as I care what 17-year-old boys think of me, I am weird. But it was, yeah, apparently you need to have aura. So there you go, Neil. You need a bit more aura in your life.
Well, clearly, I don't know how to do that, Kieran. I've
Me
never
neither.
had. So apparently, you've got it.
Well, so I hear.
Yeah. Look at you. All right.
There we
Right.
go. We need to get some
Right.
of
Well,
that.
on that note, I need to go and pick up my dog. I've left him. So it's been such a busy day. I outsourced dog walking to my octogenarian father-in-law. He's 85 years old. He'll have had the dog up the hill twice and frisbeed him for an hour. So the dog always comes back absolutely shattered, and I'm worried the old boy's going to break my dog. So I need to go and rescue him before he takes him for another bloody walk. So
You better
yeah.
have.
Yeah, there's hope for me. Yeah, I hope I'm as fit as he is when I'm 80, 85, or is it 86? I can't remember. Yeah.
That's very cool. Well, I wanted to share one more amusing anecdote
All right, go ahead.
Before we let our listener go to sleep. I was watching. It was on. I think it was Sky News, and they had some pundit about politics. He's like ex-advisor and all that. You know, the usual kind of guy on there. And they were talking about the current conundrum of the current government in the UK and all the nonsense that they're creating for themselves, it seems to me. But he said, you know what? You've seen that show, The Thick of It. He said the only difference between the thick of it and government is that people on the thick of it don't walk around going, "It's like the thick of it, isn't it?" I thought that was a fine statement.
Those are the good old days. There's been a lot on my LinkedIn feed of little clips from Yes Minister and Yes Prime Minister. And
yes.
I remember back in the day we used to use those clips in government to train people on program and project management. Yeah. And that one about how many people are we going to save? Well, we need another 3,000 minister because we can't stop doing anything and we need to do extras. So so hilarious, really funny. Some things just never change, Kieran, despite all the technology. Indeed. People will always do dumb stuff. There's one thing you can rely on in the world today.
Well, on that happy, confident thought that can send us all off to sleep. So plump up your pillow, audience.
Yeah, that's right. Night, Matt.
All right. All right.
See you have a good evening. Catch you later.
And you enjoy getting your dog.
I will. Bye-bye.